Alright guys, so what you see before you is a little project I'm about to go down, uh, kind of a rabbit hole here. So Liberty Ammunition makes this civil defense, and this is the 45 Colt. It says long Colt on there, but that just bothers me when people do that. It's 45 Colt. There's no difference between Colt and long Colt, and I don't know why people started saying long Colt, but anyways, it's 45 Colt. But anyways, anyways, somebody commented on my video one time because I used the word anyways instead of anyway, and they said it sounded unprofessional. Oh my gosh. So this stuff is extremely fast. I typically carry Liberty Civil Defense ammo in either 9mm or 10mm for self-defense ammunition if I'm carrying. And basically what this is they use a really lightweight bullet and they make it go really fast. So it is a copper, monolithic copper fragmenting hollow point. So if you scratch this nickel plating off of there or whatever this is, it's actually a copper bullet. But in this particular one, we're looking at a 78 grain 45 caliber bullet, and they've got an advertised velocity on here of 1800 feet per second. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that's wild. 1800 feet per second, 45 Colt. So, and I've shot their ammunition quite a bit. I've shot it in 9mm quite a bit, and I've shot it in 10mm, and in my testing, it actually like almost always outperforms what it advertises at. So I've tested in a Glock 48 9mm, and the 9mm rounds are 50 grain bullet, and they're advertised at 2040 feet per second. And in that 48, it's got like a 4-inch barrel. And when I've chronographed them, they actually chronograph more than that, like about 100 feet per second more than that. About 2100 to 2150, somewhere in there. And it's the same deal with the 10mm ammunition. I've tested their 10mm ammo in my SIG X10 P320, and that ammunition is advertised, it's a 60 grain bullet, and advertised velocity is 2400 feet per second. But in my experience, it generally is about 2500 feet per second, about 100 feet per second more than what it's advertised at. So that's kind of a good thing. You know, when it comes to buying store-bought ammunition, most of the time, whatever their advertised velocity is pretty much never accurate, you know. On the other hand, like these premium Hornady, these are 454 Casull, and it's the 240 grain XTP mag. They're advertised at 1900 feet per second, and again, in my experience, you get about 1900 feet per second in there. Of course, sometimes they're like 1850, and this is out of a handgun, by the way, with a 6.5-inch barrel is what I tested them in. You get about 1850 to maybe even just a little over 1900 feet per second. So they advertise they're pretty good. Most other brands that I've come across and tested ammunition and chronographed it, most of the time it's less than what they advertise. You know, by a good amount, like between 50 and 100 feet per second less most of the time. Now, I have tested these in a 28-inch Browning rifle, which we're actually going to do that again so you guys can see that I'm not BSing you how fast these go, especially in a 28-inch barrel, but they're fast. And I also have some 300 grain XTP mags, which I'm going to shoot a couple of those, which this is actually a 300 grain XTP bullet here. Now, moving into the project, if Liberty can make the civil defense ammo in 45 Colt, and they can push that 78 grain bullet to 1800 feet per second, And generally the 45 Colt chamber pressure, with a few exceptions, it's generally the same specs on it is 14,000 psi. It's a low pressure cartridge, and that's because it was originally a black powder cartridge. Now, I do believe that there are some companies that make some Ruger only, or some like Thompson Contender, single shot pistol only 45 Colt ammunition, and I believe that ammo is loaded up to somewhere around 25,000 psi. But what if, we loaded the same bullet in 454 Casull? So the maximum chamber pressure of a 454 Casull is 65,000 psi. So it's it's more than 4.5 times the chamber pressure of 45 Colt. And somewhere around, if you get similar weight bullets and stuff, you're going to end up with about 5 times as much recoil in the 454. But knowing that we can run that much pressure in there, I'm wondering just how fast can we get that little 78 grain bullet to go? Because it's doing 1,800 feet per second in this, which I don't have a 454 revolver anymore, but I do have a couple of 454 rifles, 454 Casull that is. So I'm going to test a couple of these, chronograph them in the 28-inch Browning high wall 1885, and then I'm going to chronograph a couple of the 240 grainers, the Hornadies, and I'm also going to chronograph a couple of the 300 grainers for you, so you can kind of get an idea of where we're at. And we'll get a baseline of how fast these go in a long barrel, which I'm guessing is going to be pretty fast. So anyways, yesterday, I did it again, anyways, yesterday I pulled one of these bullets down. That's what's in the Liberty defense ammo, and I believe the way that they get the bullet to be so light is, one, it's made from copper only. It looks like it's a lathe turned copper projectile, and it has a gnarly deep cavity in it that goes over 50% of the length of the bullet. That cavity is probably, the base of the bullet looks to be about maybe like 3/16 of an inch thick or so, possibly less than that, but it's just a really big deep cavity inside that tiny little projectile. And as you can see, the difference in the length, when you've got this guy seated in a casing down to the cantilever on there, you've got that much bullet in there. But if I seat this one down to the way they've got it, which is about that much, we get, quite a bit more case capacity. And plus, by the way, shooting it in my single shot rifle, I can seat the bullet out even further than that if I want to, but I probably won't see it past the second drive man. Like, I'm not gonna seat it down here or nothing, but I'll seat it probably that deep. And we'll put, as far as the starting load goes, I've loaded the 240 grains back a while back, and I typically top those out at 36 grains of H110 behind the 240s, and with the 300 grainers, I typically will top out about 32 to 32 and a half grains behind those, and that generally gets me in the same ballpark as what Hornady loads their ammunition to, which I believe is probably as close to full power ammo as you can get. I know that Underwood makes some, and Buffalo Bore and stuff, and others, but if you buy any other brand, and if you're not buying Hornady, you say buy some Winchester or something, it's going to be kind of a neutered version of the 454 Casull. It's still going to be way more powerful than a 44 Magnum and a 45 Colt, obviously, but it's not full house, full power 454. I think the only way to buy full power 454 is to either get the Hornady, or you need to buy the Swift ammunition the 300 grain Swift A-frame bullets, or you need to buy either Buffalo Bore or Underwood, one of those guys. So, anyways, this is enough talking. I'm just kind of rambling along here. I'm going to start with 36 grains of H110 and stuff this guy in that casing. Now, I do have another thing too, is I've got some Barnes. These are TAC XP bullets. These are also monolithic copper hollow points. And again, another great big deep cavity, but these are 160 grains. So I want to see how fast they'll go too, you know, like get them in there. And because of the weight of the bullet is a little bit more, we're probably going to build a little more pressure with this. So I'm going to load them both with 36 grains of H110. We'll chronograph both of them and see what kind of velocities we get. Because, you know, some of the whole deal with 454 is that it runs on pressure. You know, that's how it gets great velocity with really heavy bullets, is the amount of pressure that you can build in that cartridge, you know, which is way higher than what a 45 Colt is. It's higher than 44 Magnum or any of those other ones. And I really think the only one that comes close to the same pressure is 460 Smith & Wesson, which, if I'm not mistaken, their SAMI specifications for it top it out at 63,000. So it's 2,000 psi less, but the case is so much bigger with a 460. You, instead of like maxing out in the mid 30s for how many grains of powder you can put in there, the 460 you can get into the mid 40s and even upper 40s. So like 40, 45 grains of powder in there. So that's how you get more speed out of it. Running similar pressures, but adding it like another third more powder. So pretty wild. So anyways, I'm going to load these up. We're going to start at 36 grains of H110, which ought to be kind of like a compressed load. And because that H110 really shines when you compress it. Don't do this stuff at home, guys. I've been doing this a long time, and I know quite a bit about the whole internal ballistics thing, and so I know I'm not going to damage my firearm and or myself, but that took a lot of work to get there. So let's get these loaded up and take them outside and shoot them. Okay guys, so we're outside, we're about to test this. This rifle here is the Browning 1885 high wall. It's got a 28-inch barrel on it. The first round we are going to test is the Hornady factory 240 grain XTP mag. The second we're going to test is a Hornady 300 grain XTP mag. And then we're going to test the Liberty Civil Defense, Liberty Ammunition Civil Defense 78 grain 45 Colt. And then we're going to test the Liberty Civil Defense 78 grain, but loaded in 454 Casull. And then the last one I'm going to test is the 160 grain Barnes TAC XP. We are looking for extreme velocity here today. So here we go. We'll shoot the first round. 240 grain Hornady XTP mag. Oh, this is gonna kick a little. All right, check that out. (2,253 feet per second), 240 grains. These guys all on these kicks of 45, 70, but man, when you got 65,000 psi of chamber pressure, you can have a smaller cartridge that is producing the same speed with generally the same size bullet. So now we're going to do the 300 grainer. These are going to kick a little more, go a little slower. That's 1772. Now, it is important to note that this is actually not Hornady loaded ammunition. They just have Hornady bullets in it, but you can tell it's if I can get that to focus. Yeah. Come on now. Here, we'll bag it up. It's Starline brass, but they loaded, this other company loaded these 300 grain bullets in there. And the two that I pulled down, the powder was kind of clumping in the bottom of it, and these boxes look pretty old, so I think there's probably something wrong with them. The powder's degraded because this round should have been going right around 2,000 feet per second. That's what I load my 300 grain XTV mags to, about 32.5 grains of H110, and I generally get about 2,000 to 2,050 with 300s. All right, so with that being said, we're moving on. We're going to shoot this Liberty 45 Colt ammo. It's advertised at 1,800 feet per second, but again, was probably more than likely tested in a handgun. So we're going to see what happens. This is a 78 grain bullet. Let's see how fast she goes. 2518. And like almost no recoil. 2,500 feet per second in a 45 Colt. So that's how much, they're advertised at 1,800, but that's how much velocity we gained with the 28-inch barrel versus shooting a revolver, a normal revolver with like a 6.5-inch barrel, which is, I'm sure that's what they tested it in. So 1,800 to 2,500, so 700 feet per second gain on that. Now we're going to test this out, the 78 grain bullet in the 454 Casull casing, loaded with 36 grains of H110. And I did put a little crimp on there to maybe give it a little extra, you know, try to maybe help the pressure out a little bit, because my theory is it's not going to get a complete burn on this powder because the bullet is so light and it's going to go down the barrel so fast, it's not going to burn up all the powder before it even exits the barrel. But we're going to try it out. Let's see what happens. I wonder if this is going to be the fastest 454 ever loaded. Well, that's kind of a dud. And I'm betting that is because I'm using H110 powder behind a really light projectile. I got an error. I have to go back to the drawing board on that. Oh yeah, like that powder definitely didn't get a full burn. I'm almost certain I can pour powder out of the end of this barrel. Yeah. So, that was kind of a dud. Let's go to the 160 grain with 36 grains of powder of H110 and see what happens. Hopefully the extra weight on the bullet will help it build some more pressure. yeah, there we go. That's not bad. That's 2,400 feet per second. 2430 with a 160 grain bullet. I mean, I wonder, with maybe a little bit faster burning powder, if I couldn't get that up there a little more, you know. Definitely gonna need some faster burning powder for that 78 grain pill though, and possibly a lot of it. I'm thinking maybe trying long shot, or I'm gonna have to do some. I'm gonna have to look up some serious 45 Colt ammo, and with modern powder, and see what kind of stuff they're using. The only thing is it's only for, you know, they're only gonna give you load data for 14,000 psi. So I really don't know even where to start with a 78 grain bullet in the 454 Casull, knowing that I can run it up to 65,000 psi. You know, I'm not sure where to even start there. What kind of powder to use? My option, I guess, would be to get my burn rate chart out, look it up, go to find the H110 on there, and then go down the list to a faster burning powder, and see if I've got something that's, you know, and just go with that. I'm thinking I actually have some Alliant 410 powder, and it's faster burning than H110, but it's not as fast as like a real, you know, a 45 Colt powder or a 45 auto powder. And I'm thinking maybe trying that out, and look up some load data for, see if I can find some load data for, you know, heavy handguns, and maybe 357 load data, and that sort of thing, and try to figure out where they're, how much powder they're using, and then you know, guesstimate and go a little higher than that. But anyways, the 160 grain experiment worked. So 2,430 feet per second with a 160, though the factory Hornady with that 240 grain was 22 something, so 2,200. So we're only, with a 160, we're only 200 feet per second faster. I think we could probably do better than that. Maybe go up in powder charge a little bit, and maybe compress it a little more. But, or again, probably need to find faster burning powder is really what I need to do. But, yeah.